Welcome to our podcast series of Coffee with a Cord, where we discuss various peace and security related topics, including ongoing and emerging conflicts in Africa, policy developments, evolving theories, and innovative approaches to peace and security. Our guests are conflict resolution practitioners, experienced mediators, and policymakers within the peace and security landscape. Enjoy this episode and feel free to leave your comments. Coffee with a Cord is published by the African Center for the Constructive Resolution of Disputes. The views and opinions expressed in this production do not reflect the views of Accord and its affiliates.
Good day and a warm welcome to yet another episode of Coffee with Accord. I am your host, Lwandile Moyo, and today we'll be joined by the Central African Region Youth Ambassador for Peace, Christian Leke. This episode is inspired by the work Accord, ECCAS, as well as the African Union Youth for Peace program are doing to strengthen youth peace and security on the continent. The African youth population is expanding exponentially, accounting for 3/4 of the 1.2 billion people on the continent. Having a youthful population is a significant opportunity for innovation, economic growth, and development. Youth represent a powerful resource and an untapped pool of talent that, if able to flourish, can revolutionize the economies and societies within the African continent. For this to occur, however, young people must be sufficiently included, capacitated, and supported in their roles as innovators and citizens of the regional community. With that being said, this Coffee with Accord episode will focus on regional integration, the role young people play in the Central African region. So with no further delay, please grab a cup of coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the short animated video that will help contextualize today's session. See you soon. Welcome back. Christian, thank you so much for joining us today, and a huge congratulations for being the new IAPS for the Central African region.
Thank you very much, Lwandile, and it's a pleasure to join this very unique platform where young people are given a voice to share their perspectives and their thoughts. And I think it's really a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for the warm congratulations.
This just leads me to my first question. What inspired you to become an African Union Ambassador for Peace?
Well, Lwandile, I mean, this is a very Interesting question. Because for me as a young person, I grew up in a community that had conflict, that had violence, and at the same time at the level where the perspectives we had about international organizations were like they are not doing anything, you know. But with time, as I grew up and I found passion to prevent young people from going into crime, into violence, and responding to conflict in different ways, I came to realize that my role as a young person is not just to complain or be stereotyped that some people are not doing what they have to do, but I need to play my part. And within civil society, I grew up from volunteer to different roles, and I found myself not just leading, but also inspiring. And I told myself it would be great that I don't sit from outside and complain, but I try to create the mindset that gives me an opportunity to be part of the solution. And when this
Mm.
opportunity came up, I saw it as a great space for me to bring in my experience for 15 years working on the field and working at different levels into the continent's vision to build peace and security. Having had the opportunity to be at the beginning of reflections of peace and security from early 2013 at global level, I told myself the continent needs this even more, and even an opportunity to serve with or without pay.
Mm.
It's a way for us to build a continent. I think that's one of the key reasons that inspired me to come. And sincerely, my first few months have been really, really transformative. And I think I'm instead learning a lot than giving in, but still, it's a great opportunity to work with other young people and great mentorship from senior experts from within the African Union.
Thank you for that. So, why is meaningful youth involvement important in the Central African region?
I think that Wandile, the context in the Central African region, where I've had the opportunity to visit some of the countries and work with other young people in the country, is not just about the fact that in the region we have many more young people. That's not the case. It's because in the region continuously we are having young people who do not want to sit and complain, but they want to create opportunities to respond to drivers of conflict,
Mm.
drivers
Mm.
of instability and all of that. And the region is a region which is plagued with different forms of conflict, political related, terrorism, and all of that. And we see that young people have been trapped because some of them have been lured, some of them have been misinformed and pushed, to work for conflict. But
Mm.
interestingly, in the continent and in this region, we are seeing continuously how young people are becoming entrepreneurs responding to key issues within the community to build peace. And I think that their meaningful participation is because of firstly this reason we are seeing this revolution in young people who,
Mm.
with or without government support, with or without funding, are becoming innovative using social media, using different tools to be able to respond to issues that affect peace and security. I think that's
Mm.
one thing. I think meaningful participation is also very important because of our demographic. You know, we need to be
Mm.
able to tap into this to be a positive, energy to peace and security. Across the region, you will have young people between 60 to 70, 80, 75% of the country's
Yeah.
population within the region. This is an opportunity for us to tap into. True, they would claim that young people are troublemakers. But sincerely, I work in peace and security. I've been on battlefields. I've seen. I think it's a very small group of young people who carry arms and all of that. So the way media speaks about it, I think it disinforms the whole thing. We have many more young people who are not in conflict, who are trying to solve, who are trying to create. And I think that this is the demographic which is important to enforce more meaningful youth participation. And I think that's where our role and my role comes in, as an AR, to be able
Yeah.
not only to feel that I'm a representative, but to feel that I'm a servant and bring in perspective from different contexts and different, conflict geographies for us to learn and see how
Mm-hmm.
we can build peace with young people being at the forefront, not as beneficiaries, but as key stakeholders in the process where partners are willing to partner with us,
Mm.
collaborate with us so that we can be able to build peace. To me, this is meaningful participation, And I think the
Yes,
economic
indeed.
community as well is providing such opportunities for young people.
Mm. So, what are some of the key roles that youth can play in driving the YPS agenda in Central Africa?
You see, in terms of key roles, the YPS is a youth thing. It's owned by young people.
Mm.
So the first
Yes.
role is just the ownership. As we own it, it means that that's the first rule. We need to believe in it. We need to trust in it. We need to see it as the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
for building peace within the region. So I think in terms of rule, the first thing is that ownership, understanding, wanting to make it better. That's the first thing. I think secondly, in terms of role, young people have a role to play in terms of creating and developing initiatives which starts from very basic community levels that can be able to
Mm-hmm.
respond to the issues of peace and security. This could take different dimensions from climate related responses that affect peace and security to job and employment and entrepreneurship, and we can name it. I think these are the kind of roles young people should and are already engaging in very tangible, touchable, palpable things that can build peace. Going away from big speeches to conferences to just workshops, but to say we are bringing these to accompany, initiatives. I think young people's role also is in terms of advocacy. Young people need to be the voice,
Mm-hmm.
behind this conversation of peace and security. Of course, it is said anything for the youth without the youth is against the youth. So we need to
Mm-hmm.
man up and carry this agenda from different levels, from civil society partners to government partners to international development partners, to say this is what we need to be able to make our continent safe, secure, and prosperous. This is what we need to make our region safe, because it's a region that is plagued with different kinds of conflict realities. I mean, Wandile, if I want to keep citing these roles, we can start from today to
Mm.
tomorrow, because young people are already
Okay.
doing this, and it brings me joy to reiterate, some of these to
Yeah.
you over this session. Thank you.
From the first thing that you said, ownership, taking ownership as young people, I think that is very important. And this is something that sometimes we tend to uh, be afraid to do, actually. Ownership is a
Yeah.
big thing, especially when you're faced with a lot of things that are going on in the world. Ownership is something that we think of last. So, as an IAP for the Central African region, what are the policy frameworks
Yeah.
that can assist in enhancing youth participation in the Central African region? And I think that complements the ownership part, because once I've taken ownership, how can then the frameworks assist me in enhancing that?
In terms of YPS, young people have been building peace long time ago. It's not today. But
Mm.
unfortunately, it's today that we are having policy. And it's a new conversation. And the AU has been doing a lot regarding this. The UN Security Council has been reflecting a lot around this. And even at the level of the regional community, we might not have had a policy per se, but I think
Mm.
that other related youth engagement, empowerment policies that are existing were already like building blocks, for peace and security. I think at the continental level, the continental framework on peace and security actually sets the pace, for how countries, for how stakeholders, for how young people are supposed to approach this. These
Mhm.
policies are important to exist, and that's why I go back to the ownership. Young people need to own it, but at the same time, stakeholders who supported the processes of these policies that are existing needs to reflect on implementation plan, which are time bound and that resources are available for young people to lead them. I think this is what is important regarding this policy. So these policies exist. The framework is there. UN Security Council resolutions are there. They have been conversation within the region around COPAX and within the Chad Basin related. There's a lot happening. But I think why these policies are in existence, young people need to know them, and young people need to
Mhm.
understand that they will not wait for their governments to do what they have to do to implement them. And that's why, for me as an IAP,
Mm.
and my colleagues, we are taking it upon ourselves to push and push and push to an extent where we set a precedent where anytime a young person is featured to be an aya,
Mm.
that young person is respected, supported, provided the access that it takes for them to be able to transform the policies into practice. I mean, these are my reflections on this conversation.
No, we really do appreciate your reflections. But what would you say are other mechanisms that will enable young people, specifically within the Central African region, to express their peace building potential to the fullest?
I think in terms of mechanism, we have to start by the trust and changing the perspective of how young people are viewed. We need to, cease from seeing young people as troublemakers to seeing young people as agents of change and peace builders. I think it starts from there. The mechanism, the mindset alone is the building block of the mechanism. Because if we build these policies and structures and strategies where the mindset still sees young people as a problem, trust me, when the leaders who were leading these mechanisms leave, the new ones
Mhm.
come with the stereotype. So I think that's the first thing that is supposed to be done. I think mechanisms in terms of mobilizing resources to support this process is very important. You know,
Mhm.
the missing peace report that was developed at the global level highlighted that over 60% of youth-led peace building organizations operate under 10,000 US dollars. But look at an organization where we risk our lives. We go to the battlefield, but we cannot
Mhm.
operate more than 10,000 US dollars. So I think mechanism in terms of resource mobilization
Mhm.
is important. I think mechanisms in terms of capacity building for young people is also very important. It is important capacity because we are sometimes stereotyped saying, oh, young people don't have the capacity to manage funds over 100,000 US dollar. It keeps young people to keep being implementing partners and never young people being lead applicants for opportunities.
Mhm.
When do we grow to become the leaders that we've been promised that we will become? There's the need to have mechanism where capacity will be built from understanding of what peace and security is to how we manage institutions or NGO operations and finance and research, proposal writing, and all of that. I think it's very
Mhm.
important. And I think mechanism needs to be put in place to
Mhm.
valorize young people working for peace. Lwandile, if you watch
Mhm.
CNN today, this afternoon they will show bombing in Ukraine and Syria and Northeast Nigeria, Boko Haram, young people carrying the guns. How many times do we celebrate the ones that are changing lives? Trust me, the first time I was shown on national television for peace, I came from violence. My friends told me, Christian, doing peace is good business. And when they saw me with queens and princes and heads
Mhm.
of state, they said, it
Mhm.
means we need to forget about violence. I think that we have given opportunity for violence to get preeminence. There's the need for mechanisms to valorize prizes. When I received the prize from Her Majesty the Queen of England, even my dad, who did not believe in me, who wanted me to become a doctor, a lawyer, started believing that working
Mhm.
for peace, volunteering, working for change, even though with no money, you have value in the community. I think mechanisms to valorize is important, showcase our work,
Mhm.
inspire others. I mean, these are my reflections on this particular issue.
I actually was about to ask you about what recommendations you would have for national governments and their counterparts to ensure that policies are inclusive, but also strike a balance between what is available. But to some extent, I feel like you've answered that. But if you do have any more to add on, please feel free.
So actually, I think mentorship is a very key thing because within the youth space, the YPS agenda is a transition. You can't be a youth forever. So it's a concern, and that's why you see people wanting to be stuck on being youths. And I mean, this also has its ramifications because young people feel their spaces are being stolen from them. You know, so I think that in terms of way forward mechanisms, we need to also reflect on programs that can give opportunity for young people to learn and also as they grow beyond the youthful age, which for our continent is 35, they should be able to have access to those that they can train and make them become better. I think this is an approach that should be brought into this space to be able to ensure that we do not lose steam, within YPS.
Speaking of mentorship and programs, this actually ties well with the ECCAS Youth Webinar series that we will be having from the 5th of August. So thank you so much for your time today. It really has been an exciting discussion, and to see what momentum the youth peace and security agenda is gaining on the Central African region is quite inspiring. I'd like to end it here, but thank our viewers and listeners for joining in once again. And please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media, follow our social media handles, and we look forward to seeing you in the next Coffee with the Court episode. Thank you so much. Thank you, Christian.
Thank you for watching today's episode of Coffee with a Cord. Do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can receive notifications every time we post a new episode. For more updates, like our Facebook page, African Center for the Constructive Resolution of Disputes, or follow us on Twitter or on Instagram at Accord Online. To learn more about Accord, visit our website www.accord.org.za.